It's all about lightweight, nimble, open-top races that go just about as fast as possible. Today is all about the Australian Formula 3 Series. The Things with Wings are back at the Shannons Nationals. The fastest racing cars in Australia are the cars from the Formula 3 Australian Drivers' Championship Racing. There's a host of new young drivers at the pointy end of the field getting set for the opening round of a brand new season. We love things with open wheelers, and there's some great new talent in the field as well. Great to have the young man from Cooma back in the championship this year. Chris Anthony returns from a couple of races in Europe last year. He's hooked up with McDonald's Gilmore Racing. So this race, a reverse of the top four from the race one result on Saturday, which means the double champion Tim Macro will start this one from third place with Chris Anthony alongside Trent Shervington and Nathan Kumar on the front row of the grid. Cam McConville alongside me. Open wheelers and Sandown. It just works at this place, doesn't it?
It certainly does. A lot of smoke just on the limiter there off the line towards the back. So a very slow start off the front row of the grid. Yeah,
that was Shervington in the McGale. That's the 2014 championship winner that Simon Hodge raced. He's recently purchased that car. Good start from Macro. The Alpine Motorsport Dallara following Chris Anthony into turn one. So good start from Macro and Anthony as well. Young Cameron Shields in the second of the McDonald's cars got away well. And that's a big off for Trent Shervington. Just avoids belting the wall.
Trent did a day down at Phillip Island recently just to dial back into this car, run by Team BRM out of South Australia. A massive amount of open wheeler experience. And of course Porsche Carrera Cup. So he's going to have to do it all the way back, or second last. And as you mentioned at the top, Richard, it is good to see Chris Anthony back in Australia. So very, very quick, very fit driver, leading the way with the experienced Tim Macro right up behind him.
And this is the youngster from Mackay in Far North Queensland, Roland Legg. In the Artec Dallara, just following the two leaders. So good start from him. Unfortunately, he and Cameron Shields came together, which was sort of a worst nightmare scenario for all involved in race one. Ended up buried off the side of the road at Dandenong Road. These cars carry so much speed, Cam, with all the aero over that rise through turn 6 and 7 and the change of direction at the back of the circuit. These cars make slow corners look fast. They've got so much grip, and the line is pretty narrow sometimes, isn't it, between keeping it on the black stuff and firing it off.
It is, and very bumpy too, so you'll see them just moving around, occasionally being in what you might think is the untraditional part of the road, just trying to avoid the bumps in these cars with a lot of downforce, particularly up, and a lot of toe slipstream. Look at Macro now, he pulls up right around the outside. Oh, tight for room. Chris Anthony might have just moved over slightly to the right. That could have been an aeroplane if they touched wheels there.
And on the new Kumo tyre, they're flat as they turn in at the top of 6. This is a look at the start from Chris Anthony. That's just about as perfect a Formula 3 start as you'll get. Just used a bit of toe from Nathan Kumar, second-year driver, then put the thing on the yellow line to cover off Macro and Roland Legg. Very, very nice start. So got himself in front. He's down at the Alpine team before the start of this. They were winding on the rear wing out of Tim Macro's car to try and give it some straight line speed, and I think we saw that, but on that shot it looks like it is actually carrying a little bit more aero than the two cars around it. The later model Dallara's first and third in the race, certainly trimmed out, looking to go fast. And Cam, as you know, Sandown, so much about maximising the long straights here.
Yeah, it is, and the TV doesn't do it justice up over the top there, just how committed they are on the throttle. And as you mentioned, turning in 6th gear, full throttle. In fact, where they're braking down here, it's just enough time to get the downshift in, which is a sequential, not a paddle. You can see Tim's right hand going off the wheel, doing the manual downshifting, but only just in time to get back 3 gears, particularly down here, down the end of the front straight at Sandown. So 6th back to 3rd. You'll see right hand here, back 3 gears there, and then straight back on the throttle.
And turn 1, deceptively fast corner in one of these cars too. Great to watch an aero car work through there. This is a racetrack with so much history in wings and slicks racing. Speaking of watching the cars work, Super Slow-Mo will show us that as they turn in. That bump in the surface transition there on the braking zone, and then that's corner exit, looking down towards that all too crucial chicane, elevation change. It's a classic racetrack, Sandown. And Chris Anthony doing a very good job holding off two very fast drivers. And the car's just quick enough in a straight line to be able to defend, but Macro closer than he's been for a couple of laps now in the tow. Roland Legg not worrying about driving a thing down the inside line. And Tim with a very good run. Hugely experienced racing car driver in all categories, not just in Formula 3. And really applying the pressure to Chris Anthony, who's doing a very nice job in defence.
That's the last lap, and you can drive defensively, providing you're not moving in the braking zone. So he's doing everything well within the rules. Chris Anthony will probably run those, so he's a fair way ahead now. He's sort of broken that toe of Tim Macro, who's still pushing hard. Really, there's only one spot to make a pass, and that's down here at Dandenong Road, this part of the lap. I think he's not quite close enough.
Love that shot over the top of the hill when they tip in at full noise. Flat. Macro looking back to Roland Legg, back for a second year in the outright car. Huge amount of speed and got his first race win last season. But he's back in the category, and Chris Anthony will get a win in race 2, the Australian Formula 3 Series at Sandown. Very good win under a lot of pressure from Tim Macro, the double champion. Cameron Shields, first in the national class. Shervington, after a slow start, finished that one fifth.
It was a really tough race. I'm glad to get the victory. I knew I had to get a good start because we were also close up in the front. So I got a good start, made it to P1 by the first corner, and I was just able to keep that gap and maintain the lead. And it was a really tough race, physically and mentally, just to keep Tim behind. And yeah, really good race for myself.
So the feature race will be, it looks like, between Tim Macro and Chris Anthony. The two of those will go at it at the front of the field. The big question is, can Roland Legg work his way forward from a little bit further down that DNF in race 1, really costing the youngster. But great pressure motor race, Cam, in race 2 between the two of them. Cameron Shields starting from the outside of the front row for McDonald's Gilmore Racing. Rookie driver, 15 years of age, from Toowoomba. Away we go. Good start, Macro. Wheel spin for Anthony from the second row. And this is Chris, so clean start for Macro. He drives away out in front. There's Roland Legg swerving his way forward. Lucky it's wide on the run down there to turn 1.
He's going to try and go on the outside, but had to relinquish. I thought that might be a little tricky out there, offline, in one of these cars, so slots into P3.
So Anthony up to second, which was what we want to see. We want to see the pressure between himself and Tim Macro. Big snap of opposite lock from Roland Legg. Midway through turn 4, so out the back straight for the first time. There's Nathan Kumar, followed by Shervington. Struggled to get that car off the line this weekend. And here's Cameron Shields over the top of the racetrack in the back straight.
What is it with drivers from Toowoomba, Rich?
I don't know.
Cameron Shields just joining the list of, Will Power, Jordan Lloyd, who's now off into the States, Will Brandon. They're all open wheeler races, so they breed quick ones up there.
There's something in the water. They'll name a street after Will Power up there soon, I'm sure of it. Maybe if he wins the Indy 500 this year. So this is Shervington, the M11 Megale. Amazing bit of race car. Trent still very early in his wings and slicks career, still learning the ropes of these cars and getting faster with the guidance and coaching from Team BRM.
Yep, based in Sydney. The car lives in South Australia, so tries to get as much testing and familiarisation as he can. So Anthony can't quite make it all big lock up there. Probably just cost him a couple of tenths. You can see he used a little bit of road. So here's the onboard from Shields. Bogged down slightly. Initially had wheel spin, but then looked like it struggled off the line and Macro was gone.
Oh, he got split on both sides by Legg and Kumar, right and left. And down into turn 1, held his own. So it's Macro by half a dozen car lengths. The fight for second. Legg's locked the rears and he's gone. And he'll be beached there. No ground clearance in these cars. He'll be stuck on the curb.
He went in really deep and made a lot of ground on the turn-in phase to the corner. And there, you're right, Rich, so completely beached that car. Just wonder whether he just went in a little bit too hot. So have a look at the distance, and then as he turns in, closed right up, and then just lost the rear.
He went deep, as you said, and a big wobble at the front of the car. This will show it. Let's have a listen. just grabbed the rears and around it went, slightly offline perhaps, but dicing for position. And that removes a leading contender. It's a massive shame. He was looking really good, Roland Legg. And that's taken him out of the equation. And it's down to Macro and Anthony at the front of the field. His two-car team, McDonald's Gilmore Racing. Mark Ward from Macca's heavily involved in that program now. And has brought young Cameron Shields up through Formula Ford last year with Brett Francis, very experienced operator, into F3 this year. And I think they've got plans to follow that US pathway potentially in the future. Shervington just in behind them, up the back straight.
Fantastic looking cars, no doubt. Very striking, very well presented. And that open wheel pathway, it's good to see another young 15-year-old coming through.
There's Anthony. Went to Europe last year, Chris. Young man from Cooma, who in the early stages of his career funded his motor racing by donations from the local community, the town of Cooma, up in the Highlands in New South Wales. Heavily involved, worked at a folks' video shop, renting videos to help fund his car racing career. Super slow-mo down at Dandenong Road. Watch the cars work across the apex of the corner. So went to Europe last year, did a couple of rounds of Formula Renault, and he's got ambitions to go back there and race Formula 3 later on this season, but just came back to get some race miles and some experience in an equivalent car. But what about Tim Macro? His career stretched to 32 victories in Formula 3 now. 2 championships, of course, and the reason Denny Rumble put him in this car was to help that team, brand new team, engineering base and learn how to develop and engineer one of these cars. It's worked a treat, and Macro will win the opening round of the championship at Sandown, a place he loves dearly, and that'll be a very satisfying win, holding out from pressure from Chris Anthony all weekend long.
And good support from Fitness to Podium. Those guys certainly are helping a lot of young drivers get specifically race fit for motorsport. So a good win by Tim Macro, who's been driving engineering, and good to see him back in having a drive again.
So Macro, Anthony, Shields, Shervington, Kumar, McAlpine, the Kumar Cup winner, and Roland Legg after the spin, P7.
The boys from Alpine made a few tweaks to the car, and it was fantastic. We got the start, and it was smooth sailing for a little bit until the safety car came out, and then I really had to work for it. We had a couple of moments during the race, but it all went pretty well.
So the points after the opening round of the Australian Formula 3 Series at Sandown. So Macro, Anthony, Shervington, and the remainder coming through.